This is HBR News number 394. R.L. Stine and the Crosshairs. Ex-husband to pay wife £180,000 for housework, where we reflect on the stories of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Happy Women's History Month, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week, and that you are laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian Martinez, and I am joined by Dr. Rana McCam and Hannah Wallen. We have a great show lined up for you guys today, so please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat as well as the comment section. On this week's HBR News show, we're going to be talking about the author of Goosebumps, R.L. Stine, getting the sensitivity readers treatment. 18 female prison guards had, and this is according to the article, quote, illicit affairs, end quote, with male inmates in the UK. Scotland makes boasting about sexual conquests illegal, and more. So stick around. It's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us.
It is not going to be a good time. It's never a good time. Everything sucks.
No. Yeah. And join us afterwards for the patron-only show. No, I agree. This show has some of the craziest stories. I think it's most of them are crazy. Especially Scotland. They that's the hat trick. I can't even anyway, we'll get to it. So for the after show, in the wake of what was going on with R.L. Stine, I decided to do a little bit of digging to see if I can learn about more books that the sensitivity readers are going through, because I think that when we hear about it, there's probably a ton of other things going on that we're not aware of because it, for whatever reason, doesn't make the news. And
I wonder if they're going to do anything to the Twilight series. While they're talking about all this anime shit, like these like centuries old girls who happen to be in the bodies of young girls. They're not all that bothered about a centuries-year-old vampire like sneaking through the window of a teenage girl and fucking no. They can't change the language of that, and all they've got left is the plot of a centuries-year-old vampire sneaking through a teenage girl's window to fuck him. And they're fine with that. They're not going to change any of the thousands of naughty books that women have about similar things going on, because at least the language is all right.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a romance novel about a caveman that was frozen and was thawed out, and that was really sexy.
Probably.
I'm sure there is.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway,
if there isn't, I mean, women can just fap to Encino Man. So
sure.
There you go. But honestly, that will change. They'll go after Twilight eventually because the relationship is heteronormative.
Yeah, they will eventually.
They'll just change the vampire to a transsexual vampire.
Yeah, they'll say that they transcend gender. So anyway, So I found a website called Kevin Anderson and Associates Cultural Accuracy Editorial Services. This is just another way of saying censorious sensitivity readers. And there's some interesting things on the website, especially, I believe it was on this website where I found the complete roster of sensitivity readers. You'll never guess what all but one of them share in common. You'll never guess what trait they almost all have, except for one person. So if you want to join us on that after show, either as a member of the audience, so you can learn more.
Guess.
Huh?
Said I'll bet I can guess, but I'm not gonna guess on the show.
Okay. Please consider becoming a patron or a badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we are gone from the internet, yeeted from YouTube, then go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com, and that's where you'll find all of our stuff. So Now we're going to get into today's stories. I also have an article for the after show by this Guardian contributor that is entitled, "Stop Moaning About Sensitivity Readers. If there was diversity in publishing, we wouldn't need them."
You're kidding.
No, oops, sorry about that. No, I'm not kidding.
So they're gonna do the same thing to female and Black and Hispanic authors that they've done to gamers and people in engineering and all that. Like, since we came along and wanted to start discussing prejudice, these people don't exist anymore. We're just going to piss all over everything they've ever done and pretend that from here on back, it's been all white and male. Like that's their method of operation. Yeah. So everybody like the environment that they're describing isn't the real environment, but even if it did exist, there's a history of people who have overcome it, and everybody that did should get credit for that, because that's hard work, and that's remarkable achievement. If and the environment wasn't perfect, so they did overcome something. They did overcome some things, and that's an achievement. But no, we can't do that. We can't acknowledge the achievements of the people who came before us and still whine about the prejudicial environment. Can't.
Yep.
Like it just pisses me off.
We can go into that a little bit more, because our first story is about R.L. Stine. So you guys, I assume you've heard of or read Goosebumps. I mean, it's a little too.
My kids did.
Yeah, I didn't. I was too old for it, I think, or I just didn't get into it. But my little brother did. My baby brother, he was really into it. Right? He knows the song. I mean, Lindsay, she knows it too. She keeps, every time I say the word Goosebumps, she thinks of the theme music for the TV show. But yeah, very popular books. You know, spooky kids books, horror books with like that. I guess children can absorb without it traumatizing them. And probably better written than Stephen King, let's be real.
But apparently they do traumatize them because of the following reasons.
Yeah, apparently.
It traumatizes adult children there. That's what happens.
So after news emerged that the Goosebumps series of books were having problematic words and phrases either changed or removed, the series author has reacted. R.L. Stine seemed more surprised than any of his fans at the changes and has denied that he had any hand in the edits. Stine insists that any changes were made without his knowledge or okay, so he doesn't think they're okay, and blames his publisher for changing his works. He further states, quote, "The stories aren't true. I've never changed a word in Goosebumps. Any changes were never shown to me." Such examples of such changes are as follows.
You don't have to be dead for 30 years like Roald Dahl was. They could do it in your lifetime. Apparently, the publishers just have these rights. Ugh.
Apparently, they should. But if they didn't want trouble, they probably just should have waited until he died and then did it. But they can't wait. So
yeah, it really does depend on what he signed. If he did not sign away the right to that, that actually could get complicated, because there could be that would open them up to lawsuits.
Yeah. Well, maybe it depends on because he could have signed a contract that has
it really depends on what he signed.
Yeah. So okay, so here are the things they're gonna. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This time, you don't even have the option of me waiting until the end and then gish galloping everything. I'm going to respond after every paragraph, even the very short ones.
All right. So here are some examples of the changes. A character described as one who, quote, acts real cool like the rappers on MTV videos, end quote, is now described as one who just, quote, acts real cool, end quote. The reference to a character having brown skin has also been changed to African American, which is not accurate, but
literally everyone has brown skin, except arguably albinos. Any amount of melanin whatsoever creates brown skin of some shade or another. Even the darkest of Central Africans are just very dark brown. Even the like Irishest of the Irish just have a very light brown, albeit rather pinkish shade of brown. Even the yellowest of the yellow simply have a yellowish tint of brown. So I suppose it is kind of redundant to describe anyone as brown skinned, but it certainly doesn't make sense to change it to African American.
Especially considering not everybody with brown skin is African.
Yeah,
like how many people in India have very dark brown skin?
Yeah, I don't know what. Go ahead.
And brown usually means the bit in the middle, like you said, Indians and Middle Eastern people and what have you. It's weird enough that Africans and Europeans have been reduced to this identitarian black and white thinking, but even if the middle ground is being defaulted to what would otherwise be called black, what the fuck are we even doing? And how is it African American? Like, African British people are already discovering this phenomenon that when they go to America or talk to the American media, they get described as African American. And they're like, you people literally just call things what Big Brother tells you to call things, don't you? Fuck's sake.
Yes, they do.
It's revenge for all of our ancestors that got impressed into the British military. So now we're gonna impress Brits into American citizenship. But I don't know. They don't seem very impressed.
So then they change this. Characters that are described as plump are now called cheerful.
Yeah,
don't even know how those are the same.
Plump is already a euphemism for fat, like buxom or rotund or all these things. And I guarantee you'll eventually hear woke complaints that calling fat people cheerful is just, what's it called? Benevolent
stereotyping.
Benevolent fat phobia. And to be honest, some fat people are just cunts.
Yeah,
and I guess we can't say that either. We just can't make any reference to any woman's body mass index. Men, on the other hand, sure, men are just fat. Fat women are, what's the word? Majestic. Oh, she's totally majestic. She's a total 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Queen Slay.
Stunning and brave.
And another character was that was originally described as having at least 6 chins, which tells you something, is now described as at least 6'6".
Not even related. Not even related. If a man on his Tinder profile uses that kind of substitutive language, like he's 5'7" and has 6 chins, but he describes himself as being 6'6". The woman who swipes right on that guy and goes on a date with him will probably sue him for trying to lie his way into her pants and giving her PTSD when she first met him. And she could very well win that court case, given the state of the fucking court system. But hey, it's fiction. And you can't go turning fiction into reality unless it's patriarchy theory. And all the rape fantasies that come along with it.
This what it makes me think of is that scene in the remake of the one with Johnny Depp of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where they had stretched out Mike TV, and he goes from being a normal sized kid to like being, because if somebody has at least 6 chins, they're definitely obese, or they've got some sort of deformity, right? Like that's a lot of chins. Most people only have a double chin.
We're way past that.
Yeah, so you're talking about somebody that was probably a short, obese character that has been rewritten now as much taller than they really were in the story, and I get this mental image of the stretch complete with the whoop sound effect.
All right. Next, any and all references to slavery have been removed entirely. So
that's weird.
Can you not tell a story with that at all? Can you still tell a story?
I thought we were supposed to be teaching kids about history.
Yeah.
I guess we can't mention slavery without a footnote saying white people bad. And a further 200 pages of footnote elaborating on why white people are bad. I mean, non-brown people, whatever the fuck that means now.
Well, a
Yeah,
friend of
right.
mine is a school teacher, and she did just kind of recently explain to me that actually, yeah, they have very limited specific ways that they are allowed to discuss the issue in the classroom. And it's worse in Ohio than in some other states because Ohio has decided to, I guess, buck the federal standards in some ways. So they really have a fine line in Ohio because they have to say things that the state or the federal government doesn't want them to say, and they have to say it in ways that won't get them in trouble with the federal government. And it's like, this is not a teacher that teaches history or math or science, or she's teaching art. So you get a piece of famous historical art that the subject matter of the art in any way, shape, or form touches on the history of slavery in America specifically. Like, the way that she's allowed to talk about that is very limited and very specific. So I can see, like, the same people that are controlling that, if they got their hands on books like this, they'd be like, oh, you can't talk about this in these books. It's not controlled the way that it is in the classroom.
Yeah. All right. Next thing. This one, I knew it was, I figured it was coming at some point. A character mentioning that something was, quote, girl stuff has been changed to, quote, not interesting.
Well, that's accurate. Like, if it's just for girls and only for girls, it's actually probably not interesting.
Yeah, it's probably not, right? At least not to the boy that, because I can only assume that it would be a boy that would say that's girl stuff. Which is appropriate because boys still say that, but no, that's gonna damage a woman's psyche. It's gonna a girl's psyche. No, I'm sorry, grown ass women's psyche, because they're the ones going through this and saying, "Oh, that's not appropriate."
I'm okay with this.
Yeah,
Like I said, it's accurate.
And maybe we should apply it to the likes of Dylan Mulvaney. Day 300 of being a girl, this bullshit is not interesting.
Yeah.
And you're all vacuous dickheads for thinking it is.
And then any mention of a character being crazy, a real nut, or a nutcase have been changed to silly, wild, scary, a real wild one, or a weirdo. I don't know, like how long until weirdo is not appropriate, though?
Exactly. Like nutcase is all nutcase and a real nut. They're already euphemisms. All you're doing is running up the euphemism treadmill. All of these alternatives will eventually become just as unacceptable. Either the descriptors will keep changing until everyone forgets the original ones, or we will eventually reach the top of the treadmill where no distinction can be made between sane people and insane people. Other than, of course, those who accept the newspeak and those who don't accept it. And they will simply be called good and bad. Yes. As we were warned in the book that taught us about newspeak, it just becomes good thing or bad thing. And people wonder why I'm so averse to the concepts of good people and bad people. A case has to be made for talking like a fucking adult, people.
That's true. All right, so those are just some examples of what they're changing in R.L. Stine's books. And he's written a lot of books. You know, like they were short stories, so like kids would collect them. So if you have like the original print versions of Goosebumps books, they're probably going to be worth something, so I would hold on to them. Scholastic, Stine's publisher, has confirmed that they were the ones behind the changes, stating, quote, Scholastic takes its responsibility seriously to continue bringing this classic adolescent brand to each new generation. Scholastic reviewed the text to keep the language current and avoid imagery that could negatively impact a young person's view of themselves today, with a particular focus on mental health.
Yeah, well, my mental health took several violent blows to the face just from hearing this story. I'm not a young person, but I'm immature for my age. So, but you know, I'm fine with taking violent blows to the mental face. It happens all the time. It only makes me bounce back and become stronger. When will these people understand? The worst thing you can do to someone's mental health is to keep them in a bubble where they never have to encounter any challenge or competition or hardship. If you think millennials are thin-skinned, if you think Zoomers are crybaby snowflakes, I cannot begin to imagine what the next generation is going to be like if this is what we're doing to them. They are going to beg for Big Brother. And they'll spend their whole lives complaining that Big Brother doesn't have enough of a stranglehold over their lives. And then the following generation will be even worse. All this is going on while artificial intelligence becomes more and more dominant and taking over more and more occupations. The future is going to be unbelievably hideous, people, unless we stop this. At this point, any white pill, any broken shard of a white pill is irresponsibly inappropriate. Put that shit down. Yeah. Things are not getting better. Stop pretending they are, or they never will. God fucking damn it.
So you're saying this is not a good time for drugs?
No.
I'm going to point out, I'm kind of glad this happened. Not because I think it's a good thing for it to happen, but because it happened to somebody who's still alive and could say, "Hey, wait a minute, no, I didn't agree to this." Because
I hope he makes a fucking stink out of it, like a.
Oh yeah, this is your work, and I like all the artists and musicians. Like musicians are artists, like all of the visual artists and musicians and. All of the performance artists and everybody that's in our audience that does things like this. You know what I'm talking about. This is your mind. Your mind belongs to you. Nobody else is allowed to have it or use it or take it or manipulate it. And it's abuse when they do. Like if you gaslight somebody in a relationship, it's emotional abuse. If you dominate someone in a relationship without their consent, it's emotional abuse. And these last three generations, because now we're getting into the next generation after Zoomers is coming up on us already. Like if you think of a generation as every
Generation
10
Alpha
to 15 years, Generation Alpha is getting old enough to, like, they're reading. Right? Some of them are already reading. So we're looking at 3 generations of people who are going to love these kinds of books, who should hear an author that they love saying, "This is my mind. This stuff came from my mind. It belongs to me. My mind belongs to me. My work is mine. It's not yours to play with." I don't have anything against people writing fan fiction and stuff like that. That's you having fantasies and telling people about them. And if you do so in writing, it doesn't suddenly become an infringement, right? It may be good, or it may be stupid. It may be cringy, or it may be, like you may have thousands of people wanting to read it, but it's just you bouncing off of somebody else's idea, right? But this is not fan fiction. This is essentially the
literature.
Rape of somebody's mind. And I'll compare it to rape because it is taking away control of the most intimate center of your being, your own thoughts. This is more intimate than physical rape. And if somebody did this to my work without my consent, I would feel worse about it than any way anybody could touch me without my consent. I would feel worse about this if somebody did this to me than I do about the damage that's been done to my body by the perfectly healthy jab. That that actually is not as bad. Like I can heal from that.
Yeah.
Your mind when someone fucks with your mind, and I've been gaslighted. I've been in a situation where somebody tried to convince me that I had a mental illness that I don't have. I had somebody try to convince me that I had split personality, and they worked really hard. And the really bad thing is, like, I get away from that person and I tell someone about it, and that person tries the same thing. So I, for a year, went through being gaslighted about stuff and had to have friends step in and say, no, this person is lying to you, before I calmed down and was like not losing my shit over it. And that story, I'm probably never going to tell the whole thing because it's just too much. But in any case, having someone do stuff like this, taking your thoughts and your work and your creations, your vision, like, it's one thing for people to interpret it a different way. This picture makes me think of XYZ instead of the thing that you were thinking of when you created it. That's fair. But, well, I don't like the way that you drew this picture, I'm going to erase this part of it and draw over it. Or, I don't like the way that you created this dance, I'm going to cut that part of the video and put something else in. I don't like the way you wrote this story, I'm going to take these words out and put something else in. No. And this generation has had consent drilled into their heads, a consent narrative regarding sex where your consent not only is paramount, but it has to be explicit. Like, it's you can't gain consent by figuring out from people's actions that they're okay with what you're doing. They have to say it. And for this to be done without consent, they should be livid. If you're young and you're listening to this and you've gone through consent training, I want you to think about that.
Yeah.
This is a violation of this writer's right to refuse to have his mind fucked with. You're looking at his mind when you read his stories.
Yep.
And they've changed it.
Yep.
That is worse than atrocious.
Yeah, it is. It is. And of course what they did to, previous authors that we have reported on, but also, like, the probably there are hundreds, if not thousands, of unknown or like less known authors that have also had their work changed.
Yeah.
So it's bad all around. I guess what I'll end on is that I hope that R.L. Stine doesn't simply, shrug and say, well, I don't think that's fair. And I hope that he does something. So let's encourage him. And I'd like to hear from your thoughts on this. Did you read Goosebumps? What are your thoughts on what's happening here, or what seems to be happening? And let us know in the comments. It reminds me of James Lindsay. He was on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter, so I only know what he said is that wokeism is female, and that and I think that's true. I think it's obvious.
Well, I've been saying that for a long time, actually.
Yeah, well,
like,
I have too.
wedge.
But I mean, it's good to hear that people are starting to take notice, because it's one of the hardest things for many to actually, like, openly say, and but I don't have a problem saying it, because it's like I said, it's obvious that this is a feminine thing that's happening.
At the same time, they can't resist doing all these jokes about how now that transgender men are being kneeled to by women, like this recent thing with Dylan Mulvaney and
Matt Walsh.
Yeah, no.
Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore.
She was
kneeling at him in this interview, and they're all going, "Oh, look, it's a woman kneeling before a man. Oh, look what the patriarchy is doing now." And yeah, I get the joke, but what's happening in reality is she's not kneeling before the man. She's kneeling before the imaginary destruction of a man. It's is he hasn't been living as a woman. He's been living as a man, disavowing masculinity. He's not famous for being a woman. He's famous for being transgender. He's famous for being a man who's not a man anymore, and that's what they are kneeling for.
Yeah.
I get, like I say, I get the joke. I get that you're trying to get through to the feminists by saying this, but I just don't lose touch of the reality, which is this isn't men. It's the destruction of masculinity that they're kneeling for. Agreed.
Well, there's something else to understand about the whole wokeism being female thing, and to understand it, you have to go back to relational aggression. And my perspective on relational aggression, just full disclosure, I was oblivious to it until junior high because I grew up in a neighborhood where the girls my age, there were like 4 or 5 girls my age that were real close by my house. And then a lot of boys, like 50 boys, so we'd be at the park and there weren't cheerleaders next to the Sandlot football game. The girls played football, until the boys outgrew us and stuff like that. So when we would get into fights, like we just beat the hell out of each other like the boys did because there wasn't this network of, like, you can't ostracize someone in a group of like 3 or 4 people very effectively, especially when there's a whole horde of boys over there that she can just go play with. Like I've talked about this before, like I got fish hooked in the mouth by another girl over a Faygo bottle in a sandbox.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. You don't usually, those boys will beat the hell out of each other. Girls normally don't. And you learn your boundaries back and forth through that. And normally we don't. Girls will say, well, you can't sit with us. Girls will say, that would be a really nice outfit if you had a different shaped butt. And the whole rest of the day, like the girl is like worried about the shape of her butt. Half the reason girls ask their boyfriend or husband, do these pants make my butt look big? Like, you have the girls that do that to start an argument because they want to start an argument, but you have a lot of women that do that because some other chick has made her feel insecure about her butt. And they get really mad at girls that doesn't work on. So you translate that into a rule set where you can everything can be a social faux pas, right? That is a playground, a chess game, a football game, a soccer match for girls right there. That is women's competitive arena right there. And so anything that comes along that is like wokeism, that is like social justice, that is like political correctness, we're talking multiple generations of names for the same set of behaviors. And it was originally just called political correctness. Political correctness being, for anybody too young to know what that really means, is something being correct because of the rules, the social rules around it, not because it is factual and real and true, right? So it's women that usher this stuff in, because it's women who use it for power, who use it for creating a social hierarchy, who use it to make money. Look at the various protest groups that have grifted on this, right? And who use it to control their social environment and their men. And when women use stuff like this to make money, they're using it to grift from other women, but they're also using it to control and confiscate from men. So they'll go after taxes, they'll go after government grants, they'll demand government funding and so on, because you're smart enough to not pay for this shit willingly. But they can make Uncle Sam find it in his lexicon of this is something that I can skim off of, take my percent off of. Uncle Sam is every woman's pimp, and they'll demand funding, and of course then you get a bigger bureaucracy, right? And you get a bigger government overall and more tightly controlled life. And right now this stuff is publishing companies and bookstores and credit cards and all these private companies doing this stuff. But eventually it'll become, well, this is what the public wants, we need to make laws around it. And all of a sudden, there goes your free speech. You can't say these things now. It's not just R.L. Stine's mind that they'll go after. Right. So ultimately, this game that women are playing, and it is gamified. Look, I'm more politically correct than you are. I'm a better person, and everybody should like me more, right? That will ultimately lead to the loss of your freedom. So this should scare the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
Like, minoritarianism doesn't come naturally to human tribes, or even large human tribes. We're very much accustomed to in-group preferences, and so it doesn't occur to any human tribe of any size that they should become minoritarian. I'm reminded of what we might call Spock's razor. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and it's difficult to get beyond that paradigm until women come along who are not a minority, but they were able to convince people that they are by calling themselves a minoritized class, which just means a majority that we are demanded to treat as a minority anyway. And when you combine this with the phenomenon we call government, every democratic government, given the opportunity, will eventually discover that it's so much easier to pretend to care about minorities than it is to pretend to care about the majority. If you can because all they ever did was pretend to care about majorities, because that's how democracy works. But if they eventually figure out that they can just pretend to care about minorities, and then they don't even have to bother pretending to care about majorities, and it just slices their obligation to care about anyone into a fraction of what it was ever meant to be, and then the majority of the vast majority of the people that they are tasked to care about, they just don't have to care about, and then they have the maximum population of demoralized slaves. Why would you enslave the minority when you can enslave the majority? Yeah. And then you have 10 times as many slaves. And this is the problem with democracy. It inevitably does this. And this is why we should be ruled by people who are so wealthy that they can't be bought off. This is why we should have a Trump instead of a Biden. Do you see?
Yeah. So let us know what you guys think. This show, by the way, I think it's going to be a long sausage. So, because that was just the first story, and I think there's going to be a lot to say about all of them. So let's move on to the next one. We're going to travel to Scotland and see what's going on over there. What are the original rednecks up to? The precursor rednecks. What are they up to? So, in a new attempt to criminalize misogyny, Scotland has 5 new proposed laws. 5 new laws, including 7-year jail time for men boasting about sexual conquests publicly.
Wait a minute. How is that misogyny? I like women so much that I had sex with one. You misogynist. You hate women. Wait, what?
No, it's misogyny apparently to talk about women in any context.
I just before we go on with this story, I just want to point out the thing that I said about mind applies to this. Misogyny is described as hatred and fear of women and dislike of women. Like they added a bunch of things to the dictionary definition. Misandry is still just hatred of men, but misogyny has a whole bunch of other things. But the thing is, that's in your mind. If you were a misogynist, and I have come to the conclusion that misogyny isn't real, but if you were genuinely a misogynist, that's your right. You have a right to think the way that you think.
Yeah. Obviously. Yeah, you should anyway, but they're trying to change that. They're trying to make that illegal. So this is one of the ways they do it. So if you're a Scotsman and you go into a pub and you start boasting about, like the woman you bed down last night in your kilt and with your bagpipes and all that, you could go to jail. So
of course.
Yeah. Published by the Scottish National Party, which I hear is the cancer party of Scotland. The laws, even though it doesn't sound like it is, but it's not good. The laws propose to stop, quote, abusive and humiliating, end quote, male behavior. So this does not apply to women. This is only to men, which is claimed to prevent women from, quote, fully participating in society, end quote. The new offense.
So wait a minute.
What?
For decades, feminism have been going off about slut shaming, right? So it cannot be shameful if a man had sex with you. There is no harm done to a woman if the entire community knows, because the entire community is not allowed to judge her for that, no matter what guy it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if a guy brags about having sex with a woman, he is only telling everybody that he derives his value from having sex with this woman. He's not saying anything at all about her, according to feminists. Yeah. Therefore, again, this makes no sense.
Well, of course it doesn't, but it's female. The new offense of misogynistic behavior would include a man who watches pornography where others can see, or has loud, graphic sexual conversations about women in a public place where they can be heard by others. Whoa, laddie! And a man would commit the new offense of misogynistic harassment if he shouts sexually abusive remarks at a woman in the street or uses abusive language to a girl who does not want to be chatted up, or deliberately rubs up against the woman in a crowded place. I don't know how you would know whether it's deliberate or not.
How do you not rub up against someone in a crowded place?
Yeah.
If it's crowded, then how can you help rubbing up against someone?
Does Scotland have a problem with people humping other people's legs or something that I didn't know about? Because this makes it sound like
I don't think it's the Scots are Scotsmen that are doing that. So
yeah, that there's something going on there that these women, or they're having fantasies about it, and then embarrassed they decide that something has to be done about this thing that happened only in their heads. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yep. In addition to these two new offenses, the SNP proposed the maximum punishment for misogynistic harassment or behavior to be 7 years imprisonment. I can't ignore that detail there. In addition to these two new offenses, the proposed laws also outline stirring up hatred against women and girls. The Telegraph points out that this new offense, quote, could be deployed against incel male supremacist bloggers or Andrew Tate style online personalities, because, we know Andrew Tate is an incel, who make inflammatory remarks about the opposite sex.
It's incel or Andrew Tate style or anything in between, which is
they're so butthurt about that guy.
Range. Quote, making rape, sexual assault, or disfigurement, threats against women, what would also become a specific offense following an explosion in online abuse directed at women, end quote.
Wait, isn't it already illegal to threaten to commit a crime against somebody? Like, that was illegal. That's been illegal for a long time. Like, you can be convicted of assault without laying a finger on somebody for threatening to commit a violent crime against them. So the only thing that they're changing with this is that it's now a specific crime if the victim is a woman.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's what they're doing. They're making it a specific crime.
Changing it so that it appears to be perfectly legal to do it to men, because that's what this sounds like.
Yeah,
I think
they're not outlawing doing it to women. They're just legalizing it when you do it to a man.
Yeah, I think they're just expanding what a threat means. Like, anything a man says, like, I want to smash you, counts as a threat of disfigurement.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Watch your language. Well, although there are already a range of laws that can be used to prosecute aspects of misogynistic harassment and abuse, which, by the way, shouldn't exist, these do not accurately identify the particular harm caused by misogyny. They also fail to adequately respond to problems faced by women, which is why we are consulting on further criminal reforms. And while criminal law reform alone cannot be expected to eliminate misogynistic abuse or the attitudes which perpetuate it, these specific criminal protections are an important step in challenging societies, and particularly men's, tolerance of misogyny.
All right, so do you all see the trap here? And by trap, I don't mean, I mean the literal, trap, the Kafka trap, the modern Kafka trap of our age. You see what the police are going to say to you if you're in Scotland. You, Sonny Jim, are you an incel? Yes, I am. I don't have sex with women. Aye, well then you're under arrest. You, Sonny Jim, are you an incel? No, I am not. I have sex with women. You're under arrest. How can you possibly avoid this modern take on the classic Kafka trap, other than by exercising your right to remain silent, which probably won't help you either?
Does that exist in UK law?
I don't think it's quite the same, but it seems the only acceptable answers are, number one, I'm a woman, so I can do whatever I like. Number two, I identify as a woman, so I can do whatever I like. Or number three, I am voluntarily celibate. And I mean, best of luck with that. What your intentions are cannot be decided by you, the Scottish individual, as it's been long since established. When it comes to the Scottish courts, your intentions are to be arbitrated by the judge in accordance with the prosecution. You can proclaim to your heart's content that your life choices are voluntary or involuntarily. It doesn't mean shit. The Crown prosecution will disregard your testimony and ascertain on your behalf what you're really thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, you will be sure that it can't get any worse. But it will. It's just hard to imagine what the next step is going to be on how much worse it gets. I don't know. You, Sonny Jim, do you identify as a man? No, madam. I am not, and never have been affiliated with the masculine party. We'll see about that down the station, Sonny Jim. You're under arrest.
My God.
Yeah.
How are they going to enforce that? I mean, I think women are going to basically use it as a weapon against men.
Women are going to use it as a weapon against men. Trans women are going to use it as a weapon against society.
Mm-hmm.
And then women will complain that trans women are using it as a weapon against women.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the thing is, again, misogyny isn't real. It's all in your head. everything that they've talked about here that is real behavior is already illegal. Right? There are already things like obscenity laws. There are places in the United States where you can actually get fined for cussing. Like, I can imagine people don't realize that, but there are places in the United States where you can get, and especially if you do it loudly and frequently. Like, they may not, if you drop a rock on your foot and you say, "Oh shit," they probably won't do anything. But if you're dropping F-bombs all over the beach, then you may get approached by someone and asked to leave. And usually these are places where people frequently take their kids, that are maybe designed parks and stuff like that for people to take their kids. And just to bust a stereotype, since somebody just brought up Tourette's in the chat, the overwhelming majority of people with that have physical tics, not verbal ones. And those that do, a lot of times it's not obscenities, but you would be able to handle that in court. They wouldn't be able to enforce that law, but that's like the incredibly rare individual, and it can't be used by everyone else as an excuse. But the point is, there isn't anything real for this law to address that isn't already addressed by other laws. And if it's appropriate to legislate these things in regard to women's sensibilities, then it should also be appropriate to legislate these things in regard to men's sensibilities, right? But we see all the time women saying completely horrifying, obscene things about men. And the first thing a woman resorts to in an argument, if a guy defeats her or he looks better than her, one ups her or whatever, is starts talking about the size of his genitalia. And so if you go down this path, you can guarantee that at some point there will be men who will go down the same path, and your speech will be ruined as well. Your right to free speech will be ruined as well. So, and like I said before, you have a right to your own thoughts. You have a right to have whatever attitude toward other people. You have a right to be a horrible, prejudiced, angry, seething inside bigot if you want to. You can hate everybody on the planet but yourself, and it would be your right to do that, as long as you don't start acting against other people, physically touching other people to do damage or do harm or take things from them or deny them things. Like it's until you start putting your hands on others or taking from others in reality, your thoughts belong to you. And it's this attack on the right to have one's own thoughts. Like, it's in everything. It's in schools. It's in how we're teaching math now. It's in how we're writing news stories and how we're reading them. It's in our entertainment media. And now we're looking at actual laws being passed that say, in effect, you may not think these thoughts. That is something that, again, should scare the fuck out of you. Not only is this law completely pointless and unnecessary because everything that it would do in the physical world is already covered, but to take it to where it comes from, you may not have these thoughts. You may not have these feelings. You may not have these beliefs. That is an egregious violation of human rights. It is the deepest and most insidious and evil violation of human rights that you can enact, that you can engage in without killing someone.
I guess Scottish men don't have human rights. I mean, if they can't like that, that's all I could conclude. So Yeah, y'all need a constitution. And the Irish too. You guys are in trouble.
Well,
Like,
they
it
need
was a
something
good
that
run,
ends in
but
ocean, that's for sure. But I
yeah,
don't know if it starts with con.
move to Wales.
That might
Okay,
Oh
sound
my
more
God.
like an engine.
Wales is
What?
no better. Oh my God, Wales is no better. Do not move to Wales.
Yeah, right. So anyway, let us know what you guys think about this Scottish law, this new level of female tyranny in the comments. And somebody warn Count Dankula. So, and we're gonna move on to the next story. Okay,
I'll bet
this
he
is an
already
interesting
knows.
contrast. Okay, so that was Scotland. Now we're gonna go to the UK. Over a dozen female prison guards have been fired from HMP Berwyn after it was revealed that they were engaging in sex acts with the prison's male inmates. HMP Berwyn is Britain's largest prison and is often referred to as the UK's cushiest jail, as inmates have access to education, training, a full-size sports hall, a fitness room, weights, an outdoor pitch, and multiple means to communicate with those outside the prison. Wow, that's like club fed.
It's
Chair
like
of the prison
it's like a
office.
normal prison in Norway.
Yeah, oh yeah, sure. Chair of the Prison Officers Association, Mark Fairhurst, blames the incidents on hiring, quote, the wrong type of women. Well, that's going to get you fired, my friend. He continued.
He doesn't
quote,
live in Scotland, does he?
No, but in the UK you can get your life ruined over misogynistic remarks too. So
Yeah.
Staff being recruited. This is what he says. Staff being recruited don't have face-to-face interviews. It's all done on Zoom. A lot of people getting those jobs don't have enough life experience and are susceptible to conditioning from prisoners. Your figures just prove what we've been warning the employer about for years. In total, 18 female guards were arrested, and since 2019, 31 female officers in England and Wales were let go for engaging in inappropriate relationships with inmates.
Now wait a minute.
I think they're blaming the men for this,
right?
The prisoners.
If you are an employer, if you're an employer and you're in management and you have an employee and your employee can go somewhere else, get a job somewhere else if they want to, or they can sleep with you to move up the ladder, and they do, they can come back later and say that because you had a power relationship, you were in a position of power over them, in a position of authority over them, that makes their choice to have sex with you moot, and their consent is invalid, and you are a rapist. Like, that is the standard already, right? So now we have people in cages, because when you're in a jail, whether it's a quote cushy jail or a just an ordinary average
like
jail,
a straight up
it's
Chateau d'If prison,
right.
Yeah.
You are in a cage. You can't leave, and anything that you do, any choice that you make, you can be punished for, and you have no recourse against that punishment, or very little recourse against that punishment. And if you get on the wrong side of a guard, it's your word against the guard. If you get on the wrong side of the prison therapist and so on, it's your word against theirs. They are in a position of absolute power and authority. And they're victims of being under the thrall of the prisoners? Are you shitting me?
Yeah, you can see exactly how this would get spun.
Like, are women just like complete manipulative? Are we made of clay? Do we have zero agency whatsoever? Like, to the point where literally we can have all of the power, all of the control, all of the say, all of the credibility, and still be a victim of something that we did to a person with no power, no control, no credibility, no recourse. We're still the victims?
Yep.
I want off this planet.
Yep. Yeah. As I was saying, you can see exactly how this would get spun in the mainstream media. Yeah, beyond the Daily Mail, I mean, which is where we got this story. Obviously, the rest of the mainstream media is not even spinning it at this point. They're not even covering it because the Overton window hasn't moved far enough for them to have brought the general public's mindset where it needs to be for their purposes. But as and when they do, you can see where they'll take it. Look at what a luxurious time these male inmates are having. Not only are they getting 3 square meals a day, they have full and unfettered access to women's bodies. They can continue to sexually oppress women from the comfort of their prison cells. Why, it's practically a harem that these men are operating. How dare this fascist government allow these scumbags to run such a racket? And then you go, hey, are you going to do anything about the male criminals who spontaneously identify as female and get put in women's prisons and swiftly go about raping female inmates? How dare you? We're not talking about men who identify as women. Those people are blessed and innocent. Why, they shouldn't even be in prison. We're talking about men who identify as men. Prison is too good for them. They should be. You just want to kill them, don't you? No! We're not allowed to admit that we just want to kill them, at least not for a few years. For the time being, all those men should be thrown in a pit where they can no longer threaten anyone with rape except each other. Sure, they might inevitably rape each other, but that just proves that men are rapists. Meanwhile, we refuse to even recognize the possibility that women are even legally capable of rape. And that proves that women are not rapists. What were we talking about again? Oh, yeah, women committing prison rape en masse. Well, needless to say, it's not happening because it identifies as not happening. What a time to be alive. Hi-ho, it's off to work we go.
And you know, don't be fooled what these guards are doing to these prisoners, whether the prisoners were, you know, charismatic, like, you know, types or whatever, and which I have a hard time with. The women are raping the prisoners. That is what's happening, and at no point in the article and anywhere else is it described that way. It is simply called, you know, they're hooking up, they're having an affair, they're
inappropriate sexual relations.
Yeah, they're having inappropriate sexual encounters. Like there's nothing about rape. Imagine, okay? And I know that this is like a trope at this point, but if this was a story of male prison guards sleeping with female inmates, it would be all over the news. It would be considered, you know, absolutely like proof of rape culture and all of that. But that's not happening, you know. And I think that the fact that it's not being treated that way is actually creating more female rapists and more male rape victims. And there's some new data that is suggesting that women might rape more than men if we apply the appropriate definition of rape to women. So anyway.
Yeah, I just want to point out this happens in the United States too, and it's not new. We've known about it for a while. There is an article about this on A Voice for Men that takes the same angle that I pointed out. They're pissed about it for obviously different reasons than the ones I stated. But, you know, like, what chance do men have in the world if a man can be completely and utterly powerless, completely and utterly controlled by a woman and still victimize her in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of society? Like, what chance does a man have if a woman can victimize him in reality and then be considered the victim in the situation? And that's what we're looking at here.
Yep. All right. So I guess that's all I got to say about that. Let's move on to the next story so that we can, you know, not have an overly humongous sausage. But let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. I do have some super chows, and let me just check. Rumble there's no one there, or at least no one saying anything. And Twitter. Okay. So here I got 2. So Hannah, I don't know if you know, but there's 3 super chows from your HBR talk.
Let me look
that you
and
did on
see.
Saturday. I'm not gonna read those. I'm just gonna go to the ones from today's show. That way,
I might have already read those. I'm pretty sure
all right.
I did, and I failed to write done.
Oh, okay. So Amasang gives us $5 and says, "Wait a minute, sexy caveman thawed out. Isn't that just Encino Man?" Well, I mean,
yes.
I suppose I never saw Encino Man, but thank you for the reference. Meredith G gives us $5 and says HBR talk. Oh, this is another HBR talk thing.
Yeah,
I noticed something. No, I think she's referring to the news show. I noticed something about sensitivity readers. They are all untalented hacks who couldn't create anything, but also are hypersensitive narcissists who impose their sensitivity onto everyone else. Well, yeah, that's why they're sensitivity readers, because they don't have any talent. They don't know how to write. They want to be as big as R.L. Stine, right? Or as Roald Dahl, or Ian Fleming, but they don't have the talent, so instead they're just gonna go in and edit their work and then take credit for it. And that puts them, I guess, in their mind, near that level. I do think a lot of it has to do with the status. That's why they're not going after like independent people or people who write, like blogs or something. They're going after like the biggest people. They're going to come for Shakespeare at one point. I don't know how they're going to mess with that because it's already kind of hard to understand, but they are going to do it. I promise you. And they're going to come for guys like Orwell and, the guy who wrote like...
Oh, they're just going to nuke Orwell. You know it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or, like all the famous authors, right? Like Mark Twain. They've been complaining about Mark Twain forever, as an example. So...
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. We're going to move on to the next one. These are all Daily Mail ones, by the way, these last 3, but they're really fascinating, like, and strange. So, oh, wait, did we miss one? No. Okay. Here we go. So, this last week, a UK woman, so it's another UK story, was jailed for 4 years after admitting to have been raping a man while he slept. The judge in the case said if the myth about male victims needs to be disabused, it can be disabused now by the contents of the victim impact statement I have just read out, and warning that there is no distinction between male and female rape. So this is the judge, okay? The fact that a male is the victim does not make it any less serious than the rape of a female victim. End quote. According to the Daily Mail, the victim had been drinking all day and met up with Tanya Lord, 41, from Lancashire after she finished work in June of 2020. The two had a few more drinks and some food and went to bed. The victim believed nothing sexual would occur as Lord, the woman he was out with, was a lesbian. So a lesbian that raped a man. However, he was awakened to Lord straddling him, bouncing up and down. He pushed her off and went downstairs to process what happened, soon after leaving and phoning his partner and mother and reporting it to the police. The victim has been left mentally scarred, with Judge Lynch commenting that, quote, there's a repeated myth that males are less susceptible, end quote, to the consequences of sex attacks. Judge Lynch revealed the victim has received counseling and is still prescribed medication for his mental health. In his impact statement, he said, I would not wish this on anyone, adding that, please encourage anyone who has been abused to come forward.
All right. So that's a good start. Considering what I said about the previous stories, I suppose that's a good start. Notice it has to come down to the judge's ruling and the judge's statement. But by definition, this was not a rape trial, because such things do not exist in the UK, where the defendant is a woman. It was a sexual assault trial, because that's all that can happen. The judge just happened to be open-minded enough to say, hey, here's a thought experiment. What if, right? What if women raping men was a thing? There have been numerous petitions pleading with the UK government to recognise officially what this judge is attempting to recognise individually. And every one of those petitions has been met with, yeah, no, fuck you. This makes no sense to us, the British government. Rape is something men do to women because we say so, end of story, nya, 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 nya. And this story almost seems too good to be true. Like maybe there's a detail we're missing. As we know, in trials, it's generally expected that the character and sexual history and political affiliation of the defendant and the plaintiff are brought up as part of the evidence. And I have to wonder, what would happen if a passionately woke man accused a passionately non-woke woman of raping him? What if Gary Lineker accused a female men's rights advocate of raping him? It seems like the kind of thing that might throw a spanner in the works. I'm not saying anything. I'm not weaving any apologia for anything. Just saying nothing is as it seems. Yeah. Behind every white pill is the very real possibility of just another black pill. Yes, I know I say that about anything. I do it because I love you.
I just want to. Speaking of things not being as they seem, I just want to make sure you guys know that the photo here on the website, this is the woman's face, not the man's face.
Wait, what?
Yeah, this is the rapist face. That's who that is. That's not the person that she victimized. And I thought, like, when I saw the picture, I was like, oh, well, that's the picture of the victim. No, this is the picture of the perpetrator. This is a woman. This is a lesbian. So just that I know.
I mean, it's not. Can we say that now? I mean,
yeah.
If
I just wanted to say
was
too.
This person was this person prosecuted as a woman? Was the crime listed as because the UK law doesn't recognize female perpetrated rape as rape.
No, and I think she was.
I've actually been part of the petitioning to get that changed. And it's possible. Like, you don't see whether there's an Adam's apple or not. There are women who look mannish, and it's possible that this is a biological female. It's also possible that this was a biological male. We don't have a way of knowing from this face.
I mean,
right?
She wasn't a trans man,
right? No. What I'm saying is this could be a trans woman that is still biologically male. This could be, but that's claiming to be a lesbian. Which, if you're bouncing on a penis, you really suck at being a lesbian. Okay, that is definitely not lesbianish. Okay.
Well, I was just gonna say
there's not. It's kind of, that's not enough there to tell if that's an Adam's apple or that may be a trans woman. That may be, and the bad part is UK press is not going to use that phrase now because they've concluded that they have to just say woman. But if this person was prosecuted as a woman, then this individual is not getting the full punishment for the crime of rape. And the reason that the petition is so important is this. Either the stigma of the label rapist is unfair and should be eliminated, or it is fair and it should be applied to both sexes when they commit the crime. But what the UK does is they have two separate designations depending on whether you use a penis to commit the rape or you don't use a penis to commit the rape. And if you don't use a penis to commit the rape, you don't get the stigma that goes along with if you do use the penis. So they've basically made, when I say misogyny is not a real thing, misandry is. Misandry is definitely a real thing. Mm-hmm. And so they essentially said only, both sexes might be guilty of violating the individual when they commit this type of sex crime. And both sexes should be culpable for their actions in terms of, they have to go to prison, they have to have therapy to change the way they think so that they don't do this again. And that helps them and it helps the public. And then when they get let out, we have to watch them for a period of time to make sure that that therapy actually took and all that other stuff. Both sexes are subject to those things, but only men will be stigmatized for the rest of their life with this label for committing this crime. Women who commit this crime will not be stigmatized for the rest of their lives with this label.
Right.
So if somebody was a sexual predator, the most rational thing they could do in the sense of you want to minimize the amount of punishment that you can receive as much as possible, even if you're going to commit the type of crime that's going to get you the heaviest punishment, would be to identify as a woman, because then you could be viewed as redeemable after you've committed that crime, regardless of what is in your mind and what behavior you might engage in, whether or not you continue to fail at boundary management. You could still be considered redeemable and not labeled as a monster.
Yeah. Well, I think that, she was tried as a woman. She, because it was a sexual assault case and not a rape case, but the judge wanted to say a few words about that. I think that he was trying to, essentially say, look, I'm doing this because it's my job, but I don't think this is fair. And I am inclined to agree. And yeah, so when I was younger, like in my 20s, I was thinner and more attractive. I was friends with lesbians. I wasn't interested in them, but I knew them. And what I noticed was when they would get drunk, and they all got drunk. I don't know if that, I wasn't the type of person to do that, but when they would get drunk, they would get flirty and horny for men. And I thought that was really weird. I figured, okay, well, whatever. But just something I've experienced. So when I read this story, it kind of reminds me of, these drunk lesbians that would try to make out with me and stuff. So, and it did happen. And
there is such a thing as a political lesbian, and there has been since the 60s.
Yeah.
Where women become feminists, or they are feminists, and they act like men are bad, and they claim that it's not about hating men, but everything that they say about men is about hating, and the nature of political lesbianism is to reject heterosexuality in order to reject men. So that's definitely hatred, right?
Yeah.
You would, if they're political lesbians, that is another way of saying fake lesbians, right?
Yeah.
They're not actually in their nature.
Mm-hmm.
They're not actually lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have run into those. And then I think that there are some women who identify or try to identify as lesbians if they don't feel confident with men. And there are some women who are bisexual who get convinced by lesbians that bisexuality isn't real. And clearly when they get drunk, you discover that it actually is. And there are girls that, they're gals that you could, if you've ever been to college, that there are straight gals.
I know that, yeah. But
alcohol lesbians.
Yeah, the lipstick lesbians, though, these women were not that. They had short hair, they wore flannel shirts.
Well,
what
I'm saying is it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Straight gals will become bisexual when they're drunk. And then go back to being straight, and it's just that they may be closeted bisexuals that only when their inhibitions are down, I think there may be a significant number of lesbians, a bigger number of lesbians that are closeted bisexuals than there are straight gals that are closeted bisexuals.
There's something about human nature where women like to be chased, and I don't mean CHASTE, I mean CHASED. They like to be chased by men, and men like to be the chasers. Hashtag not all, obviously, but like I say, it seems to be part of human nature that men in general prefer to be the chasers and women prefer to be chased.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of a woman saying she is a lesbian so as to get the fastest chasers or the most devoted chasers. Like, if you want to chase me, you're gonna have to really chase me because I'm gonna tell you that I'm a lesbian. So if you really want to get me, you're gonna have to work for it. Whereas when men say they're gay, perhaps to get women interested, they find themselves in the friend zone.
Well,
friend zone.
These lesbian women that I knew, they did have girlfriends, but like you could be right. But I think that women in general are just more hetero-flexible than men.
That's probably true as well.
Yeah, I think so. That's why, like, when these sort of like progressive Zoomer girls are like, why won't you sleep with a trans woman? And the man says, because if I do that, I'd be gay. And then they get really upset. I think that, like, you know, just men are not generally, not all, hashtag not all, but men generally are not like that. So, but I think women are more like that. They're like I said, hetero-flexible. So anyway, let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. I have a super chat from Sick Fox for £5. And he says, political lesbianism, or as I like to call it, ideological prison gay. All right, thanks for that. And let me just make sure that I'm not missing any super chows before, because I think there was one that I'm just going to open up Discord here. Hold on, guys. I'm sorry. Miss Anne of Arc gives us $5 in a super chow, and she says, Shakespeare's Globe put out a content warning on A Midsummer's Night Dream. In a, quote, content warning on the site, the Globe warns that the play contains, quote, language of violence, sexual references, misogyny, and racism.
Sigh.
They're not changing the actual text of of Shakespeare's work, but yes, that's cringe. But it's predictable
that's
cringe.
Next.
Yeah, no, obviously.
Content warnings are followed by changes.
Yeah, it starts by complaining, and then people say, you know, we could just change it. I'm sure that Shakespeare would understand. I mean, we got to make it for modern audiences, is always the excuse. Mm-hmm. All right. Anyway, let us know what you guys think about this in the comment. Now we're going to look at the last story. Again, from the Daily Mail. We're going to go to Spain, where feminism has, you know, a ton of power. A Spanish court has ordered a man to pay his ex-wife 182,000, I think it's the pound sign, I'm not sure, or whatever the Spanish money is, for 25 years of unpaid...
Yeah, that's got to be pounds because the euro thing looks like an E.
Yeah, it's not euros, right? So he has to pay his ex-wife 182,000 pounds for 25 years of unpaid domestic labor. Judge Laura Ruiz Alaminos calculated the figure. So the judge is a woman, just putting it out there. Equivalent to about 221,500 USD based on the annual minimum wage multiplied by their years married. Ivana Moral wed her ex in 1995 before asking for a divorce in 2020. The separated couple share 2 daughters. Moral says that she has dedicated herself exclusively to housework, looking after her husband and the house. Her ex must also pay a pension equivalent to £444 per month as well as 356 pounds and 533 pounds on his 2 daughters, who are now aged 20 and 14.
So this is just what happens in the event of divorce, but now it's happening in the event of not divorce? Is this happening in the event of marriage? If you were... I noticed this article's not telling us what the man did. I guess worked his ass off for his entire lifetime.
Yeah, right. The couple's marriage was governed by a separation of property regime, which Moral's husband had asked her to sign at the start of their marriage. So he was actually trying to get a prenup when this and yet this still happened. Moral argues, clearly this was a case of abuse, to be completely excluded financially by my ex-husband with nothing left after my marriage ended, so me and my daughters were left with nothing after all these years of putting all my time, energy, and love in the family. I was supporting my husband in his work and in the family as a mother and a father. I was never allowed access to his financial affairs. Everything was in his name. The sentence has made Moral very happy because it was very well deserved, she said. Moral's ex-husband, who only wanted to split their home and possessions following the divorce, is expected to appeal this decision, according to the Daily Mail.
So, gosh, I can't think of his name.
She's
now.
getting paid for being a housewife.
Right.
Yeah.
The first sentence, a Spanish court, should tell you everything if you know what's been going on in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And for the last 10 years or so, feminists have pretty much taken over the entire legal system in Spain. It is a matriarchy. There is an institutionalized sexism against men in Spain, and there has been for quite some time. This is not surprising to see this come out of Spain. And I guarantee you, this man did not make this woman stay home. First of all, this woman chose that lifestyle. And that's her choice. And then she divorced him, right? She asked for a divorce. And that tells you everything as well. She's made bank on this divorce, and I don't hold out a lot of hope for the appeal. It'll be nice, but Spain has become a gynocentric nightmare for men, and it's been that the men need to pretty much rally around politicians that want to undo that in Spain if they want to survive. And they need to, I think MGTOW is going to be the only way to go, and that might not even protect you. So they're in Spain. Masculinity is almost illegal. Just masculinity. They don't even bother using the word toxic. I believe they call it machismo or something like that. Just masculinity. Mm-hmm. And it is sad. One little gem stood out in addition to the misandry of making a man pay for things that a woman would have been doing anyway if she was living on her own. Like, she's not going to stop doing housework and cooking and all of that now that she does not have him living with her. He's just not going to benefit from it at all. So she's still going to be living, her life's not going to change that much, right? But no. Paying child support on a 20-year-old?
Yeah.
Would he still be paying child support on a 20-year-old if the 20-year-old were male? Or is it just because women are children their whole lives in Spain now?
Probably. They probably are. Also, the whole thing that this man was doing when he would go to work and earn money, it was for her and his kids. How much did he spend on this woman?
I think if the court's going to give a woman a fee for cleaning and stuff like that, the court should also award the husband rent.
Yeah. Also, so how they calculated this was they decided to just go with like a minimum wage and then calculate it across time to come up with this number. So, are you telling me that this woman worked 8 hours a day every day cleaning the house? Fuck off.
That
like
must
she
have
was
been
like
an immaculate
I
house.
know how long it takes to like, clean a house, prepare a meal. It doesn't take 8 hours. Like like most wives, they basically sit on their ass, for a good chunk of the day. And you know what? Men who are their husbands probably don't even care. That as long as like the house is in decent shape, it doesn't even have to be perfect, and they can like come home to like food, like that's it. That's all a man asks for, right? You don't have to mow the lawn, you don't have to redo the roof, you don't have to fix, the gutters, you don't have to do any of that, right? And yet, this is how they got the number. It makes no sense because again, it doesn't take 8 hours to do that. It takes maybe like 3 hours. And if you have to vacuum or you have to mop everything, I mean, it's so stupid. It's unbelievable.
I'll guarantee you she has a dishwasher.
Yeah, dishwasher, laundry machine. Like it's just not an all-day project.
No. But even if it was, all right, who paid for the cost of having a house? If she didn't have a job, who paid the mortgage? Who paid the electric bill? Who paid the water bill? Who paid sewer and gas? Who bought the groceries?
Yeah.
Who paid her medical bills? Unless they have
pay for everything.
A system for that. But who paid her medical bills? Who bought her clothes? Who bought her makeup?
Mm-hmm.
Who bought her shoes? How many pairs of shoes does that woman have? Like, I don't even buy shoes most of the time. And I have more shoes than I should. Because people give them to me because women apparently are supposed to collect shoes.
Yeah.
And
like
go on.
For every pair of shoes I bought, I'll bet most women have bought 3 or 4 pairs of shoes. And this woman probably never worked for a dime to pay for any of the things that she owns. Every possession she packed to leave that house, every entertainment item, probably a vibrator. He probably bought her sex toys. He probably bought her computers. She probably has a phone. He probably paid for it. If she never earned a dime in her life, like according to this, she dedicated herself to being a homemaker. If she never did anything outside of that, this man has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this woman.
Yep.
Or whatever euros, whatever the currency is. It can't be pounds because
pesos.
That's pesos.
No, that's not pesos.
Like it's not pesos. I don't know what the Spanish currency is, but whatever Spanish
currency is. I thought
currency
it was the euro, actually.
It's euros.
Is it euros?
They're in Europe,
okay.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's typed then. It looks like the L symbol, not the E symbol. Very strange.
Yeah, but it's the euro. That's what they use. But I guess
spent on her already. Mm-hmm. And of course the damage to his health, because labor damages your body over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what kind of job the guy does, but it's guaranteed it's harder than washing dishes in a dishwasher and using a vacuum cleaner that has a motor that helps it move. If she didn't have one of those Roomba things that does the vacuuming on its own, and laundry does nothing to you. Like, it's not hard unless you position your stuff so that you have to bend and stretch to get into the washer and dryer. Like, it's complete and utter insanity. And yet she's demanding to be paid for the work that she did. But imagine if a man went into court and said, I need however many years, 25 years worth of rent, 25 years worth of her share of the electric bill, 25 years worth of her share of water, sewage, and trash, the grocery bill, all of the clothes that I paid for over the last 25 years, those are mine. She can't take them, or she needs to pay me for them. You know what the judge would say? That's abuse.
Yep.
Financial abuse. You're being financially controlling. But a woman doesn't get called abusive when she wants to take back everything that she contributed to the marriage when she leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have seen the memes along the lines of, men really live like this and they think it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what you're picturing when I invoke this particular meme, right?
Yeah.
It's an empty room with just a big screen and a TV and a console and one chair in one room. And yeah, men really are okay with living like that, and it's quite environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
when you think about it. And yeah, we get all these articles about how men are primarily responsible for all this ecological fucking carbon footprint nonsense. And yeah, if men were just left to their own devices, they really would just have an empty room with just an electrical outlet. It's only once they get wives that all of it that they have this need for all this fucking decadence. And yet here we are with women demanding fucking all this unnecessary plastic nonsense, and apparently it's men's fault, even though men, given their own devices, wouldn't be at all bothered with all this. It's women who demand all this environmentally draining nonsense, and it doesn't matter if you believe in these environmental issues or you don't. You can't possibly tell me that it's men's fault, because men don't have all that much in the way of demands. It's women, especially women who are with men, especially women who have families. They feel the need to just feed their children all these plastic devices so that they don't have to raise them. And this is only to imagine what a world would look like if men were in charge of raising children. Such a world has never existed, in which men are in charge of raising children and didn't have to work their asses off all day and leave the women to raise the children. I don't think we'll ever see such a world. But if we could at least see a world that was, what's the word? Equal?
Well, the thing that has to happen is the accountability gap has to close. And in regard to the environment, there's an HBR video on that. It's an HBR talk opener from a few years ago, 4 years ago now. So if you want to see it,
and we brought this up a number of times too, that women do way more damage to the environment than men.
Right. This is on the Honey Badger radio channel, not the live streams channel. And the title is Women Most Affected, Climate of the Accountability Gap, HBR Talk 30. And so we've been talking about this and talking about this and talking about this. There are many things that women complain about and blame men for that women have complete control over and could stop at any time and just don't.
Yep. So, so there's that story. Let us know what you guys think about that in the comments. And by the way, people were saying, yes, the Daily Mail, I guess it's like an English website, and they were doing a translation of the euros that she got. What she got in euros was 204,624 euros and 86 in change. In America, it's something like 221,000 or something like that. And in the UK, it's 182,000 pounds, which
she should have gotten absolutely nothing.
Yeah, she should have gotten nothing, obviously. But
she could she did nothing but contribute some housework that she would have done anyway if she had never been married.
Mm-hmm. And again, like the housewife role, okay, it assumes that the man, the husband, is going to spend his money on her, which he does, you know, because if he doesn't, then she'll probably get a divorce and it'd be justified. So, because you got to take care of your wife. It's like, that's all there is to it. You know, if she's going to take care of you, then you have to take care of her. And that's obvious to anybody, but feminists want more all the time, or they demand more for women. Anyway, let us know what you guys think about that in the comments. We're going to wrap this up now. I think we did okay in terms of time. It's a little over, but that's okay. So we're going now to the patron show to discuss sensitivity reading organization. So like, the publishers hire these people to do the work for them, okay? So we're going to look at what kind of people we're dealing with here. And like I said this in the beginning, you know, they do, like the majority of these people share a trait, and I want you to see if you can guess what that trait is, a characteristic, a description, whatever you want to say. So... and I don't mean like purple hair and tattoos, although there is some of that. It's something else, something more fundamental. So anyway, let us know what you guys think about these stories in the comments. We're going to go into the patron show now. If you want to join us, go to feedthebadger.com, start a monthly subscription, and you'll be able to join us in the stream, or at least watch it on YouTube in an unlisted stream. So yeah, I look forward and hope to see you guys there. And now we're going to close it out. So if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notification, leave us a comment, and most importantly, please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.